Right. So, oh, there's Jay. Oh no, you took over my screen. Now I can't see my script. There we go. Okay. I'd like to welcome Monica Figueroa and Jay Holloway, who will do the Reference Discovery and Collection Committee and the OCLC Discovery Services update. And first, their bios. Monica Figueroa is the interim librarian for inclusive excellence at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill University Libraries. In this capacity, she serves as a strategic advisor to the library leadership team and department heads in various library priorities related to transforming the library services, programs, and scholarship. She is passionate about social justice issues related to race, gender, and economic inequity, and her professional goals include exploring new ways of leveraging the infrastructure of the libraries to serve underserved communities of patrons. Drawing on her library technical services expertise, she collaborates with the UNCCH librarians on strategies for decolonizing the presentation of information and data in research. Monica participates in other forms of advocacy, serving as director of Carolina Academic Library Associates Program, a partnership between the university libraries and the UNC School of Information and Library Science, chair of the library's Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, and Accessibility IDEA Council, and chair of the university's Honorary Degrees and Special Awards Faculty Committee. A native of Ann Arbor, Michigan, Figueroa earned her MS in Library Information Science from Syracuse University in 2014, after having earned an MA in Ethnomusicology from the University of Chicago in 2011, and a Bachelor of Music in Horn Performance from the University of Wisconsin-Madison in 2006. And Jay Holloway is Senior Product Manager, Delivery Services at OCLC. He focuses on the end-to-end user experience from discovery to delivery. His team collaborates with a global community of librarians and their users to build intuitive, seamless, on-demand products and services. Team aims to bring the next generation of library services to users through intuitive, personalized discovery, and fastest delivery in the world's library collection, anywhere, anytime, exclamation point. While time is currently short due to work and school, Jay enjoys relaxing in front of the cello, a book, or one of the seemingly endless amazing shows available through an explosion of streaming services. So now I will allow Jay and Monica to start.
Great, thank you so much, Kevin, and sorry for creating such a garble of words for you to read aloud to everyone. I hope everyone is able to find like a hidden stash of cookies or something, and kind of simulate the experience of lemonade and cookies at MOUG, which I'm personally missing. So I'm going to get started here and then transition over to Monica to talk through some of the features that are specifically coming from our MOUG relationship and enhancement requests that have come through the RDC group. So to get into things, we have quite a bit to talk about today. Monica asked that I do kind of a quick review of some of the end user solutions, just to make sure you're all comfortable and familiar with what we mean when we say Worldcat discovery, which we'll say a lot as we go into the rest of the discussion. I wanted to give a quick plug for the Open Discovery Initiative and some of the work they've been doing. Talk then about the strategy that drives our platform direction, and then focus on two major projects that are coming that are really moving Worldcat discovery forward. So the first being search evolution, so a replatforming of our search engine to a new Lucene-based Solr search index. And the second is a modernization project that impacts the core search and get experience within discovery. And then, as I mentioned, then we'll talk about some of the RDC enhancements. So, what are some of the end user solutions that we offer? So, many of you have access to First Search and Worldcat Discovery through your First Search Worldcat Discovery subscription. And this is a there's three pieces to this subscription. So the first is the First Search UI itself. So that's the precision searching for reference, ILL, collection development, and more. The second component is Worldcat Discovery, the UI, which was previously Worldcat Local. So if you're familiar with that, then Worldcat Discovery is the replacement for that product. And that, with just your First Search subscription, gets you access to Worldcat, worldcat.org, and the entire central index. So if you're an active user of like the knowledge base, OCLC knowledge base, then there's a lot of search capability that you get with the subscription. With Worldcat Discovery Premium or WMS, that adds in things like availability, access to remote databases that we don't have direct in-house access to at OCLC, as well as a few other things that are really mainly because WMS is your backend ILS and what we're able to do in Discovery there. The last component that isn't as immediately recognizable from the name itself is the visibility piece. So being able to reach your users on search engines and websites where they begin their research. So having your holdings visible through worldcat.org also comes with this subscription. So even if you're not using our exact search UIs, you're still getting the benefit of getting your collections in front of users through the major search indexes as well. And then just to kind of speak to what type of searching is there. So I mentioned Worldcat already is of course available through all of the products. Worldcat.org is a product and a database, so it's available online, and it also includes a huge set of millions of articles that we've aggregated, and that's available through Worldcat Discovery and .org. And then lastly, specific to Worldcat Discovery are a set of databases that are not included in worldcat.org that you have to have a subscription to even be able to search. So with your library subscriptions, you can turn them on in our configuration module and then be able to search them. So that's really the only reason they're not included in the other ones, is just that being sure that you have the subscription to be able to access that content. And then I mentioned visibility, so being able to see holdings for public-facing worldcat.org users. With the First Search subscription, your library holdings are visible to any user on the web. Without, they are not. So while you can search all records in Worldcat, only holdings are visible for libraries that have this subscription type. However, for staff-facing applications like cataloging and ILL, and this is one of the significant differences between our end-user patron-facing applications and the staff ones, are that you can both search all records in Worldcat and view all holdings. So that visibility piece is coupled with the First Search and Discovery subscription. So related to this, I mentioned one difference, but what drives differences in the product functionality and experiences? Just to give kind of an idea of what our fundamental thinking is in this area, I'm going to borrow a little bit of content that we worked on with our user experience and design team as part of the modernization project. And I think this does a really good job of just showing generally what our considerations are in the design process. So this is kind of their vision statement, that the user experience and visual design team passionately investigates and strategically crafts frictionless user experiences that facilitate access to information. And that word frictionless is, of course, intentionally bolded to give you an idea that we're trying to not just provide experiences that work, but ones that feel intuitive and similar to experiences that users have in other parts of their life. So for library staff, that might be direct comparisons to other library products. For patrons, that might be things like Google and Facebook and social media and other products that they're already familiar with, and bringing those experiences into the fold. We have a few design tenets. making data-informed decisions. So we constantly talk about patterning and trying to understand how can we bring quantitative insights to some of the decisions that we're making. Bringing a global perspective. So from, of course, translations to the use of color and location, those have different meanings and contexts in different parts of the world. So being mindful of what those differences are in order to craft experiences around them. Inclusive and accessible design. So being especially important as an end user facing product, we are one of our major project goals is to be WCAG 2.1 compliant, which is the latest accessibility compliance. And as accessibility grows more inclusive, we want to ensure that we have platforms that can keep pace with the pacing of innovation in the accessibility space as well. And then finally, modern design standards. So using frameworks and technology that brings that modern look and feel to the solutions. And so that we can build cost-effective solutions to experiences that you have from other places. So in the modernization project, for example, there are experiences that we're able to do just because of functionality we're getting out of the box that if I had tried to build that in our current application would have just been cost prohibitive. We wouldn't have been able to invest that amount of time to build that feature, whereas it's essentially free with the new frameworks. So then thinking away from the technology itself, but the process that the design team goes through. They follow a design thinking process, which is a human-centric approach propagated by Tim Brown. And part of this, you can see that, empathizing, defining, ideating, prototyping, there's a lot of steps in the process, but the main goal is to, along the way, get feedback, understand what's working, what's not, and adjust as we go. So it's not like we'll just drop an experience on you and expect it to be perfect. We will continue to refine the experience with time. And that is something that's been core to many of the projects that we've been on in the last several months, that as we learn of new cases or scenarios that weren't obvious in the initial design process, we'll continue to build those into the solution. So I hope that gives you a kind of an idea of where some of the differences in the product spaces go. So from our staff-facing applications like World Share Management Services to our end-user-facing applications like Worldcat Discovery, you'll see different considerations and they'll look and feel different because we're trying in some ways to make them different. In other ways, we'll have work to do on other sides to catch up. So before I go into our specific strategy for Worldcat Discovery, I wanted to kind of look at a macro level at the discovery space generally. So the Open Discovery Initiative is a NISO standard. And while NISO is limited to the United States, this is a specific standard, the ODI, that I've seen asked for from other parts of the world as well. So we've seen this request from EMEA and from APAC regions as well to conform to the Open Discovery Initiative. And I like ODI because it's not just ODI that we prioritize, but we prioritize open content and open standards where they're available. While ODI revised its standard last summer, we submitted our conformance statement for OCLC as a discovery service provider. You actually, as a library, have the option to submit an ODI conformance statement on behalf of your library. So if you use any discovery product, I'd encourage you to consider submitting a conformance statement. The benefit there will be that as an industry, we get an idea of where these recommendations that the Open Discovery Initiative has made are either made or not made. So if they're not implemented, then we can get more visibility into why is this not happening? Is there something in the way that we could, like, for example, as a discovery service provider, could do differently to make it easier for another vendor or easier for a library to implement? Without having an idea of what that snapshot is or that baseline, it's hard to understand what changes we should make or how we can help move the needle on ensuring your data and access to it is open to anyone that needs access to it. So outside of that, we also aggregate open access content. We have 77+ million open access items. And we've also collaborated with the German National Library to facilitate an open access cataloging standard, which I might have spoken to last year, but in the last year it's been implemented. So we can now actually show 856 links that are indicated as open access, and those also get included in our open access filter. So easier ways to find and get open access content now. So if you're curious, there's the link oc.lc/oclc-odi, which kind of shows our support for the NISO ODI as well as our conformance statement itself. So transitioning then into what's driving our discovery platform, as well as all of our delivery services products. So things like Tapasa and WorldShare ILL, Greenglass, Worldcat Discovery, and Worldcat.org. All of this is driven by the Library on Demand. And the Library on Demand is a vision for what library services should look like based on a lot of research, community engagement, and user trends. So all of our work is informed by not just one of these components, but by the synthesis of these different areas combined. So for example, within user trends, Mary Meeker produces an industry report yearly that shows a new focus on on-demand services. And on-demand services are things like any content that's available immediately to the user anytime that they might need it anywhere. So kind of harkening back to the garble of words I had Kevin talk about, is trying to provide these services that are available to users anywhere they need them at any time. We've also collaborated with the community. For example, a big piece of that was within the Smart Fulfillment Initiative. The Big Ten Academic Alliance produced a paper on the smart fulfillment and posed some different ways that we might be able to fulfill on that, which have directly impacted features such as the best access options that I'll speak to. And finally, our own OCLC research wing has published much content around discovery and access, as well as other user trends that we should be cognizant of. So when I think of on-demand experiences, I think of those user expectations we were talking about that are driven by experiences outside of the library. So experiences that are intuitive. I understand how to use them without having to think hard about them. They're convenient to me on devices or in places where they're easy to access. Predictable. They do the same thing at the same time, no matter where you're at in the application. They're personalized, so they behave differently for me because of my role and task at hand than they might for another person who has a different experience. So one way I think of that is, between undergraduate students who have very little experience with library resources and staff support that have a lot of experience with library resources. Their needs are very different, so are there different things that we can do to meet those different needs? And again, anything, that massive body of content, anytime, anywhere. And that is the Library on Demand and our aim for that. So that's directly impacted the Worldcat Discovery Roadmap. We have 3 pillars that we're working within: intuitive discovery, smart fulfillment, and personalized experiences. In the last year, within intuitive discovery, we've ensured that wherever possible, we can reduce the number of records that a user needs to sort through in order to understand if they can access a given edition at their library. We've expanded search terms to automatically include other authoritative synonyms. So for example, we'll get them to the uncontrolled, the variant subject heading to the controlled subject heading within the authority file, without the user having to do anything to do that. We've implemented a new feature called Indicators of Search Relevance to highlight matching search terms. And here is the first feature that you'll notice is within the Modernized Discovery Ui only, which I'll speak to in a few moments. But basically anything that impacts the UI that's new this year is going to the Modernized Discovery Ui, because that's where all of our new development is going. Later this year, we'll also have new relevance algorithms, and the UI will launch fully, and I'll show those timelines as well. I'll speak quite a bit to the smart fulfillment piece here in a minute. So I want to touch on the personalized experience. Last June, we implemented a single patron account so that all of your WMS circulation and ILO transactions are in one spot. And with that, brought the new accessibility standard WCAG 2.1 to the patron account. So that's the same standard that we'll have through all of Discovery when our modernization is complete. And then finally, customization through configuration. So I kind of think of these as personalized experiences for the user and personalized experience by institution. So where there are divergent needs between two different institutions, that's where we try to build in turnkey configuration to make it really easy to fine-tune the experience to your institution's needs. So last January, we implemented some new filter behavior to make it easy to kind of reorder, expand or collapse, relabel the filters. We're adding that same level of like really robust configuration to the item description metadata. So for example, you'll be able to take a field such as instrumentation and put it all the way to the top of the item details if you wanted to do that. And also there's some different labels that you can choose, as well as determine whether or not it displays by default. So a lot more control to meet the way that you want to locally display the Worldcat and LBD data to your users. So this is kind of the roadmap for the next several months. And so I'll talk about two major projects that are coming. So the first is Search Evolution. And Search Evolution aims to improve search result relevance for users that are seeking known items or exploring topics. So to do that, we are leveraging a new search platform. It's an open source Solr search engine, which is exciting because that means that we can actually use all of the functionality that's built for search systems in all industries. There's some search problems that are just common search problems across all domains. So we can leverage all of that work from this as the baseline, and then just customize it to meet the needs of specific library metadata. So rather than solve for all search problems, we get to focus on the search problems that are most impactful to library users, which is a really exciting and welcome change from the previous environment that we were working in. This will be a new shared platform for all OCLC products and services. So it's a very long migration period. We have several products already using it, and Worldcat Discovery is next on the list to benefit from these new enhancements. So our current plan is that we will have a kind of three-phased approach, and there are two three-phased approaches I'll talk about today. So this is the first, and I hope I don't conflate them too much for you. So for Search Evolution, we will pilot with a set of institutions. We had 60 institutions sign up in December to pilot with us. And during that, we'll do some very tightly controlled testing to make sure that relevance is working. And there will also be plenty of time to play around and just explore to make sure that the searches that you're accustomed to and familiar with work well with your data. The second phase will be a migration period where there'll be an opportunity for volunteers to sign up to migrate to the new search platform. And we'll migrate them in waves. And then the final step will be a rollover, which we're currently anticipating by June of this year. We're still solidifying dates, but I just wanted to give you kind of a hand-wavy idea of when that date might occur. And so the migrations will be sometime before that. So a lot more to come there. If you're interested in that, we have product insight sessions quarterly that will go into a lot more detail in these. And if you are an active user on the community center, there's a ton of resources about this as well. Oops, go forward. So the next project is with the Modernized Discovery Ui. So the scope of this is the search results, item details, and landing pages. So by far the most used pages in Worldcat Discovery. We will have follow-on projects for additional pages, but we wanted to focus on the most widely used pages at the start. So as promised, here's the next three waves. So this is actually in preview right now. So I'll show you in just a moment your URL if you're curious about it and you'd like to play with it and you haven't seen it yet. So that is a place where you can test today without any fear that end users are going to access it. You can provide feedback to inform our releases and the rollover period. And there's a really active community center discussion around the modernization. If you're interested, I encourage you to go take a look at that. There's been a ton of great information there. And as well as to prepare the transition for your user. So if you have screenshots or support documents for how to use Worldcat Discovery, this is a good time to take a look at those to see if they might need refreshed later this summer when the transition is happening. So the transition period is June and July, so starting July 1 and through the end of July. You can choose the time that works best for you. The configuration option is actually already there, but we're encouraging institutions to wait till June when all of the parity functionality will be available. And finally, a rollover period. So if you're not an active user of Worldcat Discovery and you don't care when it transitions over, or you'd rather wait for the rollover to occur automatically for you, you can do that, and that would be the first week of August. So we're still solidifying the exact date on that, but I would anticipate the first week of August for sure. So that will be an automatic rollover if you haven't yet already volunteered to transition. So if you're interested in accessing the Discovery UI, the new Modernized Discovery UI, here's an example URL. The gist is after .org, you just add this /v2. You can add that from other pages too if you see that pattern. And I would suggest if you'd like to play with it, to use a private or incognito window so that you can just close that browser and not be stuck in the modernized experience. If you do happen to open it in a regular browser, you just have to restart your browser, but we capture the session to try to keep you in the modernized experience for when the transitions occur. So that's why that might happen to you. So any of your URLs will support the preview URL if you're interested, so feel free to check that out. And then here's a couple screens to just give you an idea. I kind of want to walk you through the basics of the changes. So these are mockups, so you'll see some Latin and hashes and weird data that won't actually be present in production. But just to give you an idea, the filters are in pills at the top. The search results are below that. I'm going to scroll down a little bit and show that one of the biggest changes is trying to emphasize the local formats and editions that are available from your institution. So in this scenario, we have a print book that's available from OSU, and we will display all of the unique other formats that are held by your institution. So in this case, the OSU might have a few other print book editions, but the only other format they have is an ebook. So we're going to display that ebook within the other editions and formats section. And there is a link to view all other editions if you're interested in that. However, in one scenario, if the edition that you're looking for is not available, then we will promote another edition of the same format. So in this case, the print book is checked out, it's not available. So we promote the next best print book to the user. So in this case, it's an older edition, but it's available today. So the user might be interested in using a slightly older edition with the benefit that they can get it now rather than wait. And I just wanted to show what this looks. So this is with Discovery Premium or with WMS where you have availability. I also wanted to show with the first search subscription, you still get the benefit of other local editions and formats. It just doesn't have the availability information. So in this scenario, apologize my kind of awful search for sonatas, but it did the job. So I can see eMusic as well as a CD, LP, and music recording edition that are all held by UMKC. So just to give you an idea of what that looks like as well. And then let's say I click into one of the titles. Here's a view of what the item details looks like. So the most exciting change here is that we can display all of the item description while also still promoting item availability and request options all at once. So we don't have to make this choice between, do we want to display the description and then push down fulfillment options, or only display the fulfillment options and hide the description. I think this will be really beneficial, especially to our music users, because now we can display things like instrumentation and genre and some of the other fields that don't display on the search results and required an additional click in the current UI. Now it all just displays by default. So I'm hoping that adds some additional value to you as music users. So if you're interested in keeping tabs, or you see something missing that you think should be there, there's still a ton of functionality coming in the next couple months. So we have a planned features list that shows, what's available today, what's coming next month, what do we plan to have there by the time you're expected to transition. All of that's documented there for you. And just a few recommendations if you're interested. Just familiarize yourself with your preview site. I would suggest reviewing that planned features list. Submit any ideas that you have. So we're actively still synthesizing and working through feedback, enhancements, and defects that our customers are seeing through the Community Center enhancements page. And finally, just watch the release notes for full details on new features. So as we roll out new features, all details will be documented through the release notes. So with that, I'll hand it over to Monica to take us through some enhancements.
Thanks, Jay. And as Jay was mentioning, the Community Center is active, and OCLC really values MOUG's input. So as you'll see in a couple of enhancements that have gone through last year, our input really made a big difference. So Jay, why don't you click to the next slide? So you all may recall, but we do have some new members, some new attendees to MOUG this year. So since we're virtual, but in 2016, the joint MLA MOUG OCLC Search and Discovery Task Force published a report that contained specific recommendations for Worldcat discovery. And some of those recommendations were about displaying subfields. So we had this perennial problem of John Adams and trying to differentiate that name because subfield B and subsequent subfields C, D, K, and Q weren't displaying, and they weren't sort of connected, right? And so now they are. So that is a major enhancement that went through this past year. So Jay has an example here. And so you can see now, you can see, resources that are linked to John Adams' 1947 name. Thanks, Jay. Sorry, that's my 7-year-old. Playing some video games. Okay, next one. So another major enhancement that went through, I'm sorry, I'm just pulling up my notes, making sure I didn't. The other thing I wanted to mention were that the names are hyperlinked with additional data for new searching. Jay, we talked about that when we were prepping. Also, so for this one, so another recommendation was to when we have fields 700, 710, or 711, and they contain subfield T, that we should display all title related subfields. And so that enhancement went through, and now you'll see that all of that is exposed in the record detail. And you can see it's under this includes label down here at the bottom. And so that information, those fields are hyperlinked and are searchable. If I'm not, am I saying that correctly, Jay? Yeah, okay, great. Awesome. So this is that's really important stuff for music users in terms of searching and getting the resources that you need. Other features that came through. Yeah, Rebecca, me too. They're lovely. So other feature highlights. So now records display of Worldcat 856 links for full text and open access resources. There's some search expansion for authority data settings, clustering. Maybe Jay can speak more to that, but now there's new options for grouping edition clusters in search results, which is really important if you're looking at, sort of brings together variant records that may be of the same edition, but maybe have different language of cataloging, or if they're accidental duplicates that haven't yet been merged. Other new content that's been added to Worldcat Discovery and worldcat.org. So MGG Online and Realm music encyclopedias, and also Alexander Street music video collections. So perhaps some of us who have Worldcat Discovery or Worldcat or use worldcat.org have noticed these new additions. So that's it. I do want to say, yeah, questions, of course, but I do want to say that it really is important for us to continue to share our input and our ideas through OCLC Community Center or email RDC committee members. Yeah. But we are open for questions, please.
All right. Thank you, Jay and Monica, for your presentation. If anyone has any questions, oh, here we do. We do have a question from the audience. Please type your questions into the chat, and we will ask them on your behalf. If you would like to speak, you can type in 3 question marks instead. We have a few minutes for questions. So first question we have here is, that's not a question, that's a statement, I guess. But here's a question. Do the subfields for John Adams show in a facet too?
Good question. So subfields for authors do not display today in facets, but that is something that we're looking at. So I don't have a date yet for that one, but that was something beyond a display change that we could make in Discovery. We need the data to be returned. I also see a question around configuring record display. So that configuration applies to all items at your institution. Some of the main differences we were seeing were primarily just not present on other format types. So if you have some examples where it would be really helpful to be able to control by like format type, and that metadata displays on both format types at scale, then that would be interesting to hear as well.
Right. Thanks, Jay. We actually, no, Mark says never mind. Okay. I have a question. If nobody else wants to ask one, I'm going to take over here. So you mentioned that having a subscription to First Search allows you to access the Worldcat Discovery interface, which I understand, but I have never been able to figure out how to get into Discovery from First Search, or like, what is there a secret way to do it? Can you show me?
Yeah,
because I'd love to see what it looks like from that side.
It is the First Search Worldcat Discovery subscription, with which most First Search subscriptions are. If you want to send me your symbol, I could look up the URL to see if I can find it for you.
Our symbol, I believe, is STF.
Okay. Yeah, so I can at least confirm whether or not it's there. Otherwise, if you are curious about how to get it, our support team, if you open a support ticket, they could definitely help you get access to the URL for sure.
Great.
Or any other subscription questions that you might have.
Thanks. Okay, looks like there's another question. Can Jay say more about the authority file expansion that he mentioned?
Yes. If there's anything more specific that you'd like to hear more about, I can just talk a little bit more about it. So the aim was to, since Worldcat is authority controlled for things like subject headings, we wanted to try to make it easier for users to do searches that would get them to that controlled heading. So rather than having to know that they have to search for myocardial infarction to get results that actually have that term on it, they can just search heart attack, which is a 4XX. It's a related term in the authority file. We can get them to myocardial infarction automatically. So it is implemented just for the subject vocabularies. It's something that we can consider expanding functionality further as we go and see more use for it. Some other considerations that we're thinking about, it is pretty much like it has to search on the whole user phrase. So it is, in terms of recall and precision, it's incredibly precise. So if you are doing searches that include a combination of like a topic and a name, then it's not going to expand on the topic unless they're separated by Booleans. So, it is trying to help with the majority of cases, but there are some scenarios where it will not apply. Anything else that you're kind of interested in there? Okay, cool.
Here's a question. I must have missed something. At the end of Jay's presentation, it was shown that a library had a print book, but the physical description below that said online resource. What's going on?
Most of the screenshots I showed were mock-ups, and those are notoriously bad at good data catches like that, because the design team will take a record and then we'll apply that record to like 10 different use cases that we're thinking about the different scenarios of the feature. So we won't go and capture perfect data for every single one of those. So that's where you'll see some of those errors.
Yeah, I've found in my career that slides don't have any sort of validation. So I make lots of mistakes on those.
A good question.
Okay, Mark Scharf wants to ask a question. I'm going to... Are you unmuted, Mark? Go ahead.
I am unmuted. So this betrays the fact I don't use this product terribly often. I'm a connection guy myself. But when you showed the displays where the name and title information is displaying and it was all in blue, does that mean that hyperlink actually keeps the name and the title together so that you're searching when it redirects, it's doing the whole string?
Yes, yeah, so it searches for the entire string. There is one constraint that we're working with right now, which is that we're working on a title indexing change that will help with this, but we are searching for the individual subfields and anding them together. So it's slightly broader recall than you would expect probably, but better than not searching them together. So I thought it was still worth making the change.
And that combination still doesn't work for 100 240s, I would take it. In other words, you can't redirect on a combination of a 100 and 240, right?
I'm not sure exactly, but if what you saw in that link is everything that would be searched for that.
Okay, thank you.
Search, yeah.
All right, I think we're gonna. Oh wait, yeah, slides. Okay. I think we're gonna wrap up now. I mean, there's a minute left. If there's any one really quick question, otherwise we'll wrap up and move on. So I'd like to thank Jay and Monica for their presentation. There's a lot of excellent information there, and as Monica says, OCLC is available and listening when we want to make enhancements to these tools. So, and MOUG's in a very good spot to make recommendations like this. We've done it in the past and we still do it. So I think this is something that we should really be taking advantage of with our relationship with OCLC. So thanks, Jay and Monica. And I'm going to, can you stop sharing your screen, please?
Yes.
All right,
Sorry.
thank you.